Okay. Good afternoon. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet as well. How many of you have the feeling that when we get together like this, it's wonderful, but then you go home and what we've talked about seems so far removed from your daily experience that it's hard to see any relevance. Well, the idea that it's far removed is absurd. If it's not relevant to every single moment of your day, it's useless. And we might as well all go home right now. But it's far from useless. And it's absolutely relevant. The last couple of weeks we've been using the word singularity, indicating that your mind is a singularity, and it is inseparable from and identical with the mind of God. And that's where you get into trouble, because you go home and you forget that your mind is the very presence of God, individualized by God as Himself expressed right where you are. God does not express Himself and create an entity called you and you and you. So that there are a whole lot of created entities that God created but are somehow distinctly different or separate from God. God is embodying Himself infinitely individualizing Himself without dividing Himself up in any way, shape, or form. Now, perhaps an easier way to see your week in between these gatherings, these meetings, as not so irrelevant to what we're discussing, is to understand that you only have one mind. You don't have two. You don't have a divine mind that God is being right there where you are, and then another mind called an ego. You don't have two minds. You are yourself a singularity. That singularity is pure conscious awareness, mind. And it's either being used truly or it's being used poorly. But there's just one mind. And what the Course does is to help bring you back into an awareness of this fact so that you may choose to use your mind well, instead of in a conflicted manner. You are each the Christ at this moment, either fully aware of what you truly are, or you have filled your awareness with a concept of yourself. And definitions you have made up. And you're governing your lives, your consciousness of things, by means of those definitions and concepts. But it's a singular mind. It's the one and only conscious awareness that is the presence of you. So, again, what you're beginning to learn to do is to use this one mind that is the Christ of you well, instead of in a sloppy, careless, and confused manner. I've brought out that there is a place of excellence in each of you. Well, this word excellence can be used in a general way, like, yes, I can choose to do things excellently. The word excellent has a small e. Here's a real practical way of putting it. As you were growing up, your mom and your dad said, now you be a good girl, you be a good boy. And then you would go and do things. Oh, good girls don't do that. Good boys don't do that. And so you began to acquire a set of ideas as to what a good boy does and what a bad boy does and what a good girl does and what a good girl doesn't do, right? And if you were a cooperative type person, you tried to embody all the things that a good boy and a good girl does, and if you were an angry girl or boy, you chose to do all the things that a bad girl does and all the things that a bad boy does, just to get even. Either way, you were choosing to act on the basis of a set of rules. And in that way, let's say that you chose to be a good girl and a good boy, you grew up learning to do things in a way that you could call excellent. Now, when I say there's a place of excellence in you, that's not the excellence I'm talking about. Because that excellence is an educated excellence. You see what I'm saying? It's not something inherent in you as an unalterable state of your being. The excellence in you has a capital E because it's derived from your source, that which is being right there where you are, God. When you get up and go through your day, most of you go through it trying to be a good girl or a good boy still, no matter how old this boy and girl are. And you can go through your whole week without ever thinking about God, without being aware that you have a partner at the least, that you have a present, active source of your being, which is being you each moment new. The Course and I are encouraging you to remember God, to bring the awareness of the presence of God into your day so that you might remember that you have a resource that is really a source with a capital S that you can draw upon if you invite it in, that will allow you to be, quote, in the world from a real place of excellence that is healing and transformational. So if you go out, if you go home today, back into the world, and remember that it's a simple matter of choosing to come from a place of excellence in you, and then remembering that that place of excellence has a capital E, that it is divine, and therefore it is intrinsically valuable with a capital V. Then you will be able to bring that excellence into a more relevant position in your mind as you encounter every activity of your day. And you will be able to do it without becoming spiritual, weird. We're talking about healing. Healing of your mind. Healing of your mind means the transition from independent activity based upon the idea that you are an independent mind that somehow is lodged in a brain in your body. And all of it is purely physical. We're talking about transitioning from that to a renewal of your connection with God so that God becomes pertinent in the most practical of ways in your daily life. So that everything that you have been doing because you have based your actions upon concepts and definitions of yourself that were learned, may begin to break down, dissolve, and yield to a new way of being, which is really your original way of being. So that you might be the light of the world, so that you might be that which is a determining factor in uncovering the kingdom of heaven, which is the only thing in your face, right where you had been seeing a physical world with physical human beings and nothing else. It's time for the kingdom of heaven to be re-illuminated to you and to your brothers. Let's go to the book. The heading is Healing and the Changelessness of Mind. The body is nothing more than a framework for developing abilities. It is therefore a means for developing potentials, which is quite apart from what the potential is used for. That is a decision. It is therefore a means for developing potentials. What potentials? Well, the potentials I've been talking about. The illumination of the kingdom of heaven. The illumination of reality. Where? Not out there, but in your mind. Because the definitions you have in your mind are determining what you're seeing out there. It isn't changing the kingdom of heaven that is out there, but it's determining whether or not you're seeing the kingdom of heaven or a physical universe that has nothing to do with God and started from a big bang. Continuing, the effects of the ego's decision in this matter are so apparent that they need no elaboration here. But the Holy Spirit's decision to use the body only for communication has such a direct connection with healing that it does need clarification. The unhealed healer obviously does not understand his own vocation. Well, do we have any healers in the room? Do any of you think of yourselves as healers? No, not usually. But if you're looking at things and not seeing what they really are, and if everyone else is looking at them and not seeing what they are, and you all agree on what you're seeing, then there is a call for healing. And because it is your birthright to be in your right mind, then it's your birthright to be the ones who uncover reality more clearly by becoming open to the direct experience of it, right here and right now. So you're all healers. Why? Another reason is because you need to be healed. Because you deserve to see what's really going on here. The unhealed healer obviously does not understand his own vocation. The unhealed healer doesn't even know he has a vocation. Continuing, only minds communicate. Since the ego cannot obliterate the impulse to communicate, because it is also the impulse to create, the ego can only teach you that the body can both communicate and create, and therefore does not need the mind. The ego thus tries to teach you that the body can act like the mind and is therefore self-sufficient. Yet we have learned that behavior is not the level for either teaching or learning. Can you see that? Behavior is not the level for either teaching or learning. Your behavior expresses always the way you identify yourself. If you are identifying yourself as a private mind, or even a private I, one that can see things the way it chooses to see them, and can make up imaginative descriptions and definitions of things and then believe them, and thereby make them true, your behavior will express that, and healing can't come from it. On the other hand, if you choose to go within to that place of excellence, because you know that place of excellence has a capital E, and it means something beyond whatever your current best definitions are, you are choosing to join with something outside your memory banks. You are choosing to join with that which is divine. Now, because of that decision and choice, you prime yourself for inspiration, the influx of vision that is true. And when that happens, your behavior changes, but still the behavior isn't what does the healing. It's the clarity of mind. It's the movement of conscious awareness back into its natural singularity, where it is not choosing to act independent of the Father. And the inspiration of true vision causes you to see with new eyes. It is that inspiration which is then communicated to the brotherhood, because there are no private thoughts, and it blesses everyone. Because remember, this singularity is all-inclusive. Remember that I said when you move into that singularity, although it feels as you do it as though you're becoming more private and more separate and more tiny, you find that as you move into that experience of singularity, it is huge. It's infinite. And it does include all of creation. Again, yet we have learned that behavior is not the level for either teaching or learning. This must be so, since you can act in accordance with what you do not believe. To do this, however, will weaken you as teachers and learners, because, as has been repeatedly emphasized, you teach what you do believe. An inconsistent lesson will be poorly taught and poorly learned. If you teach both sickness and healing, you are both a poor teacher and a poor learner. Now, it's very easy for all of you to teach what it's like to be a human being. It's very easy for you to teach each other what foods are not healthy for you and what foods are. You can all teach each other how to avoid the illnesses, the sicknesses that come around seasonally. It's very easy for you to teach how not to be sick as a defense against being sick, right? That's confused thinking, because you are stating sickness is real, it's inevitable, it's or very likely, but you can avoid it by behaving in such and such a way and doing such and such a thing. But you know what? You have a capacity to teach each other how to overcome the liability to be ill, period. That, however, comes not from training, not from learning, not from education, but from moving into that experience of singularity that occurs when you, with persistence and gentleness, choose to go within to the altar and to open up to the Holy Spirit. In other words, to go into that place of excellence in you. so that the truth might be revealed to you, where you know it down to the tips of your toes. And in that knowing are aware of your utter invulnerability to anything other than perfect, pure harmony, in which dissonance or dis-ease cannot occur. Now, if you will let yourself into that experience and nurture it by continuing to invite it, you will begin to teach how to, and this isn't the best word, overcome the liability to be ill. This is significant. You all have the capacity to use your mind in an unconflicted way so that what you teach, you learn, and what you teach well, you learn well. Because you're not teaching conflict. Because you're not teaching conflict, you don't learn conflict. Now, every day, unconsciously, you teach each other how to be human beings. You do it without even thinking about it. It's pure habit. But what the world needs is someone who's willing to teach how to be divine being. Not divine beings, but divine being, a verb. And again, you can do that without being spiritual and weird. I'm saying that repetitively today so that you might embrace what I'm talking about more easily, knowing that what comes forth within you to be taught will be recognizably of value and will come across in a gentle and unsurprising way that will nevertheless be transformational because it will not reinforce the mutually agreed upon definitions and will leave an opening for ahas to occur in those around you. And as you provide those opportunity for ahas, you learn the ahas yourself. You see, there's the singularity of it again. What you give, you get. What you teach, you learn. The love you extend is the love that you receive. Why? Because there's only one thing going on, a perfect singularity. That's why nothing works well when you give to get. Because you've divided up a singularity and you are being in an unsingular or divided way. And so what you get back is not a singularity. What you learn is continued confusion. It's really very simple. It's not punishment. If you do something that doesn't work, it doesn't work. And when you change and do something that does work, it does work. Just because that's the way it is. Not because in one instance you were a bad girl or a bad boy, and the next instance you were a good girl or a good boy and got a gold star, you see.